What I'm about to say about the following events, take it with a grain of salt. After reading multiple studies of the battle, I came across many contradictions and over-mythicized events, so I tried to boil them down into facts, but I may be wrong in some regards. This is just a generalization of all the different narratives, but with that out of the way. The two armies met in the October of 1448 in an area called Thrush-field next to Pristina. It's hard to determine the size of the armies, but comparing all the estimations, they were somewhere around 20 to 30,000 strong for the Crusaders, while the Ottomans had around 50 to 60,000 soldiers. The numbers clearly favored Murad, so Hunyadi took a more defensive position to the north and reinforced his camp with ramparts and waited for Skanderbeg's reinforcements to flank the Ottoman forces. The Sultan, seeing this defense, didn't attempt a frontal charge. Instead, he tried to force the defenders out to the open by sabotaging their supply lines. After this strategy proved itself unsuccessful and Hunyadi's men still held their position, Murad resorted to another tactic. He moved his full army across the Sitnica river and hoped that the frightening sight of their numbers would surely make the Christians flee in terror. But the Hungarian and Wallachian troops stood with sheer determination. Murad had to use another trick. He feinted a retreat and moved back to the left side of the river. This time Hunyadi was fooled by the bluff. The memories of his defeat by Varna still burned violently in his soul, and the hatred which he felt against the Ottomans clouded his judgment. He mobilized his full army and started a pursuit. Murad waited for this exact moment to lure Hunyadi even closer and give him a false sense of security. The Sultan even offered him 100,000 gold coins. Hunyadi, of course, refused the offer and advanced his troops into a battle line. Then the Ottomans did the same. The Hungarian general lined up his men into one line and divided them into 3 columns. Cavalry made up both flanks and the center, while the infantry waited in reserve behind them, supplemented by artillery. Murad ordered a similar arrangement, positioning the Rumelian Sipahis on his left, mirroring the Anatolians on the right, both complemented by light cavalry. His light infantry was positioned in the center, and separated behind a series of trenches and shield walls stood the elite units of the Janissaries, protecting both the Sultan and the artillery. Their first clash was on the 17th of October, the battle lines straining each other in a bloody struggle without anyone gaining a significant advantage, and the next day became even more ruthless. Murad expected his left flank to breach Hunyadi's right and ordered a charge. The Hungarians, however, waited for the perfect moment, just when the horsemen were in the range of their cannons, and blasted them with relentless, concentrated fire, and after waves of bombardment started their counterattack. Their charge dealt a devastating blow to the European Sipahis, whose remaining numbers began to flee. The knights kept their push, hunting down the enemy, but in the meanwhile made the same vain mistake as them. As they left the formation, they were met with a rain of arrows and cannon fire. Sustaining heavy casualties, they were forced to retreat back into the protection of the main forces. Taking advantage of the weakened Hungarian right, Murad ordered and lined up his men for another charge, and despite riding through hell, reached the Christians. As the Hungarians' right flank began to collapse, Hunyadi rode for the rescue and pushed back the Sipahis into the range of his cannons, making them retreat again. The battle continued at dawn with such fever that they skipped firing arrows and resorted to hand-to-hand combat right away. The 2-day-long stalemate seemed to broke when the Ottoman right started to break under the charge of the Hungarian knights. Murad recognized the weakness of his flank and ordered them a slow, methodical retreat, which could occupy the attention of Hunyadi's left. This maneuver had utmost importance, since in parallel he ordered the remainder of the Rumelian cavalry for a flanking attack. His ruse worked, for Hunyadi, blinded by the success of his cavalry, decided it was time for dealing with the Sultan once and for all. With his personal unit, aided by the infantry, rushed towards the wall of the Janissaries amidst the rain of arrows, finally breaching the line. His idea might have worked, but these were no ordinary recruits, but the very best trained killers that the Ottoman Empire could offer. Keeping their calm, they opened up the line, funneling the Christians deeper and deeper until there was no way out. The knights were completely surrounded and suffered a terrible defeat. At the same time, Murad's second trap also sprang into motion. The Hungarian horsemen, responsible for breaking the Ottoman right, almost achieved their success when suddenly the Romanian cavalry appeared on their right side. Their ranks were already spreading thin against the superior numbers, and now they had to fight in two directions, which made them eventually broken. Although the accounts are silent about the Hungarian right, we can assume that they suffered the same fate and were crushed by the Ottoman Sipahis. Another uncertainty is the advancement of the infantry. It is questionable that if they managed to push through the gap in the line of the Janissaries with the cavalry, or they collided with their newly closed wall. But one thing is certain, they found themselves in a brutal hand-to-hand combat and only made it back to camp at a great cost. However, since they lost support of the cavalry, their fate was sealed. They fought until twilight and tried to halt the Ottoman troops with desperate bombardment, but the charge of their overwhelming numbers forced them into a melee combat where the last of the defenders perished.